Good morning, students. I hope now you can understand the varieties of language according to its use. In our last class, we have discussed register. In this video, we are going to discuss varieties of language according to user. User, the person who uses the language. So you can say the speaker. Language is a means through which communication is made in society. And society is a group of people living together and sharing common culture, common values, common life standards. Generally, they communicate through their common language. A society or a group uses a particular language for the communication. Uh, Language is, in this sense, language is a social phenomenon that it is used in society for communication. However, it is a person, the speaker, who is the actual user of the language. So, it is an individual phenomenon also. On this basis, some scholars say that language should be studied separately only as a language, and some say that language can't be studied in isolation from the society. So, a language follows both qualities of a person, individualistic qualities, and the qualities shared by the group, that is called conformity. That language used by one person has its own attributes, has its own features. At the same time, it confirms, it follows the qualities of language associated to the language by the society. Here, I have used what Saucer says. Saucer says that to study language, one has to study parole. We have discussed it in our last class, that Saucer has divided language for that broad term, that is the knowledge of language, and parole is the practical use of language, that is called competence, as how language is used in real life. Similarly, there are two types of approaches: prescriptive approach and the descriptive approach. Prescriptive approach says that language should be used in this way, and descriptive approach says that no, this is the way in which a language used, so it is also an accepted way. Here we can say for our this class that there may be many types of variations in a language, especially on these points, on social point, on regional point, according to the subject, according to medium, and according to attitude. Here in this class, we are going to discuss variation because of regional varieties, because of different people living at different places use language differently. So we come to the conclusion that according to the user, a language may be affected by his region, by his social class, even by his age and his gender. Dialect. When a group living in a particular geographical area share a particular way of speaking, it is called a regional dialect. So dialect is related to region. For example, we have British English that is spoken in Britain. We have American English that is slightly different from the British English, and it is spoken by people living in America. Australian English, New Zealandian English, etc. So these are the regional varieties of English. And when we talk about the varieties of English on the basis of region, on the basis of area, it is called dialect. We can tell where a person comes from by the way of his speaking, because every area has its own special way of using the language. We can identify the difference in speech on the basis of pronunciation, vocabulary, and even to some points the difference in grammar. These are the elements which are generally different between the varieties of a language. If the variation is in pronunciation only, it is called accent. If there is difference only in pronunciation, not in grammar, not in lexical items, not at some points in structure, then it is called only accent. The term dialect doesn't mean an incorrect or deviant use of language, though it is different from the standard form of language, but it is not incorrect. The language varieties used by the members of a particular class or caste in a society are called class dialect or sociolects. Sometimes even people living in the same area, they use language differently because of their particular group. Simply we can say because of their class, because of their caste. Every caste has its own particular way, special way of using a language. For example, even in British English, there may be upper class dialect, middle class dialect, lower class dialect, etc. These are only for example. Even in one area, there may be subdivisions according to area where people living in particular area use the language differently. The scope to which we can identify social class dialect is uncertain. Upper class, middle class, lower class, these are not the certain divisions to study dialects. It may be different. And it is controversial also, but it does affect the variety of a language used. For example, in Britain, there is a noticeable relationship between social stratification means layers, stages, class here we can say, and the use of speech. A general observation is the higher you are up in the society, the less you use the non-standard variety. Higher class people use a language which is nearer to the standard form of language in comparison to the dialect used by lower class even in that same area. To give some examples, done as the past form of do is used by the working class speakers in London. Done as second form, but the upper class does not use it. The effect of age on language variation is also found, but there are certain grammatical features which distinguish age dialect to some degree. Though there is not much difference, but there is still some difference in the use of language depending upon the age, especially during the process when a person means a child is learning a language. A child uses language differently. His lexical items, his structure, his pronunciation is different, but as he grows up, he changes that pattern, and obviously his pattern comes nearer to the standard form of English. We can find differences in speech of a child and that of a grown-up man. So even age changes, age causes change in the use of language. Then differences of language because of gender. Language behavior between male and female has been studied in recent years, but it is difficult to come up with a firm conclusion. However, certain typical differences have been noticed in this field. Male, a man, and a woman in the same given situation, belonging to the same area, belonging to the same class, they use language differently. Often it is noticed. Males use non-standard variety more than females. Similarly, males tend to use non-standard pronunciation. The speech of a female is more formal than that of a male. So, ladies, their language is nearer to standard form. Taboo words. Taboo words are generally avoided by female speakers. Male speakers often use it. The use of taboo words is found more in the lower social class than the higher one, and in language and in younger people than the older one. Thus, the personal characteristics of the language user influence in combination the variety of language. The regional dialect and the social dialect work together. Regional dialect and social dialect. Regional dialect, the variety of language according to the area. Social dialect, the variety of language according to the class, according to profession. So, the regional dialect and the social dialect work together in different forms in different age and gender. Thus, any individual will speak a language or dialect made up of features associated with several dialects. Associated with several dialects. So, these are the varieties of language according to region, according to social class, and we can say that every person influenced by these factors, influenced by the factor of place where he lives, influenced by the group or class he belongs to, his language is modified. And then there is difference because of his age, his gender also, and then as he grows, his language also changes. So, thank you, students. Thank you for your patient watching. In our next class, we will discuss the standard form of language. Till then, thank you very much.